Yes, you have seen it right. We are finally getting what Tale Worlds have been sitting on for the last few years. Does Mount & Blade have revealed War Sails? This is going to be the first DLC of Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord, and my oh my, does it show something quite special. This is one of the coolest announcement trailers I've seen in a long time, and in fact one of the guys that made it is actually a Total War cinematic guy, and he's done a few Mount & Blade cinematics as well, so go and check out his channel because he's done a fantastic job on this. But I wanted to, after I posted the trailer yesterday, bring a more in-depth video talking over some of the main aspects of this DLC and exactly what we can expect. Sailing the high seas as part of the Nordic expansion. Yes, Vikings are properly coming to the game, and naval warfare is going to be the main feature. Now, naval warfare was something that was kind of speculated on some of the teasing for Mount & Blade back in 2018, 2019, but it never came on launch. And in fact, I would probably hazard a guess that there were plans to get naval warfare into the game before it actually released, but they just couldn't quite do it. They actually mentioned how difficult it was to put this new Mount & Blade aspect within the game, having ships fighting, clashing, and boarding each other. But I'm so glad that they finally managed to sort it out, and we're going to be getting it within War Sails. You'll be leading mighty fleets and forging your legacy within this DLC. It is going to be a single-player expansion, bringing naval warfare and, of course, new factions within the game. You're going to be doing a lot of sea battles and a lot of conquesting over the oceans. Now, we have had mods that have done something fairly similar, specifically the Europe map for Eagle Rising. You can go into ferry ports and actually buy ships and make sure you can get troops from one place to another across continents. But within this, it's going to be a lot more in depth. Think of it like, I don't know, back in Warband where we had the Brighton Walder mod, and that was then made into the Viking Conquest DLC, which was an incredibly in-depth expansion. Now, this DLC is going to include a lot of stuff within the single player, with one of the biggest things being the Nords, a new Viking-inspired faction, which, of course, eventually turned into the Nords in Mount & Blade Warband. Because if you don't remember, Mount & Blade Warband is actually set 200 years after Bannerlord, and this is the first we're seeing of the invading Nords. Chart your course to the Northern Kingdom, home of the fearless Nords, legendary sea raiders and masters of close quarters combat. Explore the land of jagged peaks, vast taigas and freezing fjords, where scattered settlements rise like ships from the sea. A bold adventurer may trade their goods, recruit their warriors, or join their ranks, maybe even challenging their rule. Now, this new faction I cannot wait to see. We can see from the trailer that the new arms and armor are coming in, once again still using stuff from the original Bannerlord, but from the trailer itself, seeing the fighting between the Empire, the Nords, even Khuzaits on ships, which I'm sure some people will enjoy. It's going to have this naval warfare system that has been inspired by accounts of actual medieval sea battles. Realistic wind and water physics, ship-to-ship combat that lets you board enemies from multiple points, ram them, or attack from afar. Now, imagine a quadruple A game like, I don't know, Skull and Bones that spend over 200 mil, and Tale Worlds have just shoved them out of the water literally with rams and boarding. They're not cutscenes. This is Mount & Blade with commanding all your troops as you'd expect. Now, if we look back into the past of the Mount & Blade franchise, we can see a little bit of an idea of how this is going to work. Let's look at the Blood and Gold Caribbean game. This was a game that was made off Snowbird? I think it was Snowbird. They took the Mount & Blade Warband engine and they made their own game, Blood and Gold Caribbean, within the, Caribbean, and set within this Viking fantasy. And within that, there were some ship sailing. You had to take into account wind speeds. Of course, you could have navies and have multiple ships, a little bit like, I don't know, a Napoleon or an Empire Total War with down over the top. And then you could board enemy ships and then go in and fight on these ship scenes. Now, whilst that is an idea of how it's been done in the past, I think there's going to be so much more in depth. I don't think there's only going to be some looking down over the top view. I think it's going to be solely actually third person commanding your ships, much like you would in, normal Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord battles. Being able to set up lines, of course, skirmish troops if you want to, have archers and slingers and things on the back of these things, or just set them to actually charge and raid in on the naval vessels. Captains can seize opportunities by boarding already engaged ships, preparing for incoming attacks by creating floating fortresses, or take risks to tie down several enemies at once, giving their allies an edge elsewhere. They may ram the enemy ship to sink it, or at least throw men off board. Yes, that's going to be absolutely incredible, being able to attach huge iron rams to the front of your longships, and when you impact an enemy, you can actually see troops flying off their ship, therefore diminishing their troop count, I guess, more passively, shattering oars and compromising the buoyancy of ships that can eventually be sank. Well-placed arrows and ballista fire can also tear through sails, further crippling the mobility of the enemy vessels. Now, this is so in-depth from what I expected from Mount & Blade. I'm going to be completely honest. I knew that naval warfare was going to be a factor within Bannerlord's future, whether it was within mods, because, I mean, we've seen some of the mods that have come out and they do involve being able to steer ships. However, going this in-depth is something that does give me great relief, because when I saw the hints and when we kind of worked out that it was going to be a Viking DLC, I was a little bit skeptical, a little bit worried. Would we just be retracing the steps Viking conquest from Mount & Blade Warband? No. This itself warrants it to be an entirely new DLC and expansion for the game, and I, for one, cannot wait to see how well that this works out. Calradia, though, is going to be expanded itself. The map has been reimagined with a northern region, a settled island, coastal waters and open seas. The dynamic weather system also refined to include storms and trade winds. If anybody is unaware, weather can change within Calradia, and you can actually see on the map rain spots and snow spots, and this will change the battles themselves. But now we're going to have it over the seas, depending on how you can trade across, how quickly ships can move, so on and so forth. The naval systems and Nord faction will be integrated into the already built Calradia in Bannerlord, but it will completely change the warfare, the diplomacy, people that you can actually get to, and trade. There's going to be quicker routes that you're going to be able to use using these ships. Now, of course, custom maps like the Europe map are going to benefit greatly from this if they're able to be implemented within Bannerlord, because they have more things in terms of water bodies and streams can be traded throughout, as that's kind of going on in some other ways. Ship production and new trade goods will add regional variety, and coastal towns can grow rich from this if they can fend off pirates and naval invasions. And I'm assuming what they mean in pirates is basically bandits that will have their own ships that you can then go and attack in the open water. Now, there is another and even more exciting part to this, and this is the fact that sieges have also been adapted to naval warfare. Armies will have to bring along a fleet and set up a blockade if they want to step supplies and stop any reinforcements arriving overseas. And I just hope we're able to have some sort of naval landing sieges within Bannerlord, a bit like we got within Rome 2 Total War, being able to combine land and of course naval warfare. My god, that would be something else. Like, imagine defending a city and you can just see these long ships coming in, they land, the men jump off. We already know that that's an ability. If we're able to board other ships and men are able to fly off when they get rammed, I'm assuming already that there is the ability for troops to be a separate entity to the ships themselves. And that, well, that is what excites me most. God damn. There's going to be a complete variety between the Empire ships, the Nordic ships, the Crusade ships, the Azerai ships, as you'd expect. All these different cultures are going to have different strengths and weaknesses, kind of similar to, I guess, troops. Players can choose from 18 ship types modeled after historical vessels, each with unique handling, shaped by realistic wind and wave physics. They can be customized with siege engines, like having ballistas or onagers on the ships themselves, cargo holds, sails, rams, and much more. Shipyards build and stock vessels based on their town's culture and development, as I mentioned, with your different factions having different ships that can be used. Players can also capture ships and figureheads in battle. Bit like you'd capture lords, well, you can do that the same with ships. The character system has been extended, like, you know, adding in your Nordic hairstyles and things like that. There's also going to be some new items, including axes, shields, armor, spears, much like you expect from the new faction. Troop trees now include marine type troops that are more effective at sea, and players can also recruit new companions with maritime backgrounds. This is a fully integrated new mechanic within the game. They are not half-assing this at all, which I expect is why it has taken so long. A new questline introduces players to the seas of Caradia through cinematics, scripted missions, and classical Mount and Blade gameplay. Learn how to command your ship and take it to battle against the pirate confederacy. And I'm expecting these cinematics going to be very, very similar to what we can see here within the trailer. The sound of the seas comes to life with Mediterranean and Nordic inspired musical tracks with rich soundscapes as well. And that's pretty much everything we have for the DLC, but it is this trailer itself that really brings in the majority of the information. We can see all the new arms and armor that are being used as the Nordic faction, and the amount of detail that has been put into this. These are all cinematics captured within engine as well. Burning ships, as flaming arrows, which we haven't seen within the base game, are now also, I'm assumingly, being added in, and they're going to be able to use against the sails and the ships themselves. And we can see some of the, well, the towns and the sieges that are going to be able to be done with naval battles being included within sieges, blockades outside as well, stopping the trading, and that larger Mount and Blade Caradia map. Now it looks like we've got some Khuzaits here, or maybe even some Azurai. No, these seem to be Khuzaits and our Empire ships, and we have the Battalions as well, which I'm assuming are going to be the most seaworthy faction in the world. A lot of the landlocked countries, especially the Khuzaits, are probably going to be pretty weak at sea. But we can see, pardon the pun, a naval force trying to stop this blockade. I think they are Empire troops. No, they're Valandians. Does this look like Mount and Blade 2 Bannerlord? In some ways, yes. Goddamn yes. But every time I was watching this, I couldn't help but thinking this looked way too advanced for a Mount and Blade game. Now I've got more updates on their way in the future, talking about the base game and some huge bits that are being added in at the same time as this expansion. But within it that they mentioned that this was something they wanted to do for a long time, but they just couldn't quite get it done. And it's taken them so long, along with some extra mechanics that will be coming in. But I want to know what your thoughts are on the DLC. Will you be picking it up? It's coming in June of this year. Until then, I will see you in the next one.